Hey everyone, this is my 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLS 550 Matic. Today I was making a couple videos regarding the two batteries in this vehicle. So this video is going to focus on the main battery, which we'll get better views of soon, but for initial viewing, that battery terminal there is the ground terminal. So you have easy access to disconnect ground from the car when you're doing repairs, maintenance, or anything obviously electrical related. Keeps you safe, keeps the car and all its computers safe. So we'll come back to that part in the back in a few minutes. Some basic tools you'll need for this. In my situation, a lot of years of experience, a lot of confidence. These bolts are usually in there pretty good because they're holding the seat down to the frame. I'm using one of my impacts and to get those out, and I have to show you what special tool you're going to need to do this job. And basically, in my terms, I just call it a reverse Torx. So this one is, if you can see it there as I rotate, E12. So this is an E12. So when we look down here at the head, it's like a Torx. In this case, this would be, that top of that head would probably be almost right on with a T50 Torx. So if that is true, the E12 should fit perfectly. And it does. So they kind of cross over. I was going to share this little view for you. So the one we're using here, the E12, and here's T50 Torx. And so a couple of them that I have, they line up in sequential order. So this is what you would need at the most would be this little 6-piece set, unless you can get your hands on an E12 reverse Torx singly. So now we'll go ahead and take our E12 Torx over here and put it back onto my impact. And I'm using a little swivel on the end. These swivels, they usually don't hold up very well when you're using an impact. This one I have is a Blue Point. It's actually pretty tough. It's like the sub-brand of Snap-on, sold by Snap-on. So I have some faith in it. They'll hold up for a while. And the reason I did that is because straight down, as you can see, you're going to be fighting with this cushion on the seat to get any kind of straight down force on that bolt. And this one over here, it's even worse because you're dealing with the center console and the bolt is completely hidden under the seat cushion. And this is as far back as the seat goes right now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to remove these two front ones. Then we're going to move the seat all the way up. And then we're going to start the rest of our work from the second row seating area. So I'm going to set you down right here for a second. And I'm going to pop these out. Alrighty, that didn't take too long. So boom, there we go. Got that one out. And we got that one out. So now we'll transfer our tools here, impact and portable light. I've got some extra overhead lights set up for a little better viewing, as it's a little dark here in the garage. And now we're just gonna slide the seat all the way up as far as it'll go. And then once we get the 2 bolts behind the seat on the back of the seat rails, then we'll be able to basically push the seat a little closer to the glove box, and we could use something like a block of wood or something you got that you can prop up the back seat rails to give you some more working space, because this is not a fun space to try to work on a battery that is, if I remember correctly, 10, 11 inches wide and almost 18 inches long and almost 10 to 12 inches deep. It's a biggie, and it's pretty heavy. So you want to have as much free working space as possible, in my opinion. Save your back, don't hurt yourself, and you won't be fighting with this as much. And hopefully this video will help it be a little bit smoother of a process. So let me get you set up right now on the tripod. Sorry, I'm more of a mechanic, car guy than a film, movie, video producer. I just want to get you guys in a good view here so you can see all the action. Okay, let me just find something to stabilize that tripod real quick. Don't want you guys rolling around on me while I'm working on the battery and then not notice. Okay, looks pretty solid. All right, so just like in the front and the back here, we've got bolt there and bolt there, same size, E12 reverse Torx. And this one you could take the swivel off, but if you choose to use one. Wow, okay. Nope. Cool. We're done with the impact for now. So we got our 2 bolts. We're going to set those to the side. And no need to disconnect anything from the seat. Like I said, we're just going to kind of push it and move it up, pop it out of the way. And this is the cover that just sits here, like so, like kind of under, like in here, and then snaps in. So it's just a cover, you know, for feet and keep things out of the battery bay area. So that just comes out by hand. And then first thing I do before I continue anything moving forward, loosen up this nut here, give it a little twist, and out it comes, out the ground comes. So you can just kind of work it down out of your way for now. Not going to damage it in any way. And so now the car is free and clear electrical wise. So, you know, old school stories, males with wedding rings using wrenches around batteries, and the wedding ring gets arc welded to the wrenches. If the positive terminal touches the ground and you've got metal on your hand, you're in for a bad day. So always best to try to eliminate any potential threats or harm. Little harness here, these clips kind of get worn out. That's on top of here for the little extra blower fan. Just simple little clip, pop that out of the way. There we go. And then this one, it has, if you can see, right here where my laser is on the right side of there's another tubing here for this airflow. So obviously, you know, one comes in, one goes out through the blower, and there's another one kind of under this carpet over here. So this thing is essentially squeezed into both of those. So it's just a little battle between you and plastic to get one side out by sliding it back and forth, get it clear of the carpet, give it a yank, and there it is. Set that out of the way. Now, here we are. We've got clearance now. We're almost to the edge of where the battery is. This is another layer of protective cover for the battery, because, you know, as you may or may not know, car batteries for many years were always under the hood. And then some manufacturers started putting them in the trunk, and Mercedes decided, let's put them under the seat. Don't know. I'm a true loyalist with my Mercedes. I've had plenty of these cars over the years. This is the one I've kept the longest because it was the most expensive at time of purchase. So this one has two clips here. Just give it a little wiggle and knot out of there, and out that panel comes. So now you have a view 95% up to the front of the battery, and there's your positive terminal kind of buried up there. So we have to get a wrench up there to undo that positive terminal, and then once we get that off, we have right here on the front, this is the it's like a little drain line, mainly for fumes, but this is an AGM battery, so it's completely solid. I don't know, I guess it still has to be there. I don't know that much about engineering on AGM battery technology, so it's there. Take it off and put it back. The batteries in almost every car nowadays use a sandwiching bracket with bolts type of basic engineering to hold the batteries in place so they don't move around when you're driving. Old school batteries used to have the bars that go over the top, and you have to get them secure at the bottoms on each side, and then get the nuts, tighten them up. It was a little bit of a chore. But this one, take a quick look. I believe that was either 12, 13, or 14. So let me get you off the tripod so I can show you what I'm looking at. So luckily they made it more easily accessible than putting it on the front. So I do thank them for doing that for us. So you've got one there and one there. And if you look, I'll get the bracket out. I don't need to pull the whole battery out and put it back in, obviously, for this video, but I'll show you how the battery is actually constructed on the base so that the battery mates with this plate that goes down to sandwich the base of the battery in place. So let me grab a couple of sockets and we'll get that plate out real quick. I'm back. Try not to keep you too long. So I'm going to try the 12 first and see if that's the one. It's been a minute since I had to change this. So while I'm working on this, I'll just tell you my short, sweet version of the horse story, minor horse story I had with my battery a year and a half ago. It's not a 12. The car was completely dead, not responding when I came back out from Costco. And oh, there we go, rookie mistake. I was going to show you that this is indeed a 13 millimeter here. So 13 millimeter, and I'm just doing it with, you know, a good adjustable ratchet, 3/8 drive ratchet with an extension. So yeah, I had to manually get into the car with the little hidden key inside of your key fob. And then when I tried to get the car to respond by pulling the push the start button off and inserting the key in to the actual keyhole that is there. Again, some people may not know that about Mercedes. You have a manual way to get in your car, and you actually can put the key fob in an ignition cylinder that is located behind the push to start button. And you can pop that off with the manual key that you pulled out of the key fob. So I was like, okay, well, the battery's got to be shot. And it was 8:30 at night. Even the basic parts stores are closed, let alone trying to get Mercedes to help you. Granted, when you're a Mercedes owner, a lot of services are covered, including towing anytime, anywhere it needs to go. For example, my dealership is 2 hours away from here because I refuse to use my local dealer due to past experience. So my preferred dealer is pretty far, but well worth it. So come to find out, after I get it towed home, I checked it with my voltmeter, and I got like 8.7 volts on this cold cranking 900 amp AGM battery. I was like, okay, That's not good. So when I kind of search the internet a little bit, you know, get some research, see what someone would say about that weird voltage. I came to the conclusion that two of the cells shorted out, which is kind of surprising. That battery was only like 2.5, 3 years old, and it was an actual Mercedes battery, which, you know, costs 2 times at least the cost of the highest end Duralast Platinum you can get at AutoZone. So the problem that made it a nightmare wasn't the towing the dead battery. It was the fact that I had no power in the car to move the seat to get to the battery like we did today. And I'll pause right there. The sandwich plate is giving me a little trouble. The bolts are out. 2 nuts here, 2 13 mil nuts. I was using my long needle nose, but I think there's too much pressure pushing on it because it's right up against the studs that are welded down in there for where those nuts go. So I'm gonna grab something to see if we can relieve that somehow. So I had to get creative to get power to the car. So what I did is I have a car I'm slowly restoring, has a brand new battery. Obviously not the right size or type for my car, but what I did is I took that battery out of the car, used my charger, made sure it was full charge, and then jumper cabled. I took the connectors off this battery, or the bad battery, and took out the small backup battery so that there was just no power in the car, period, no possible way. And what I did is I fed the power in through the engine bay. There's 2 jump points, a ground and a positive terminal. And so I basically created my own battery connection to feed power back to the car that way. Now, it wasn't for anything else but utilizing the switch on the door panel. So, didn't try to start the car, don't try to move the windows, anything unnecessary. Just open the door and get the seat to move back and forth. And after a little while, because it would work and then it would stop. And then I would just disconnect it and wait, because my gut feeling was the car didn't like that somehow. And I didn't want to damage anything. So I just did it in, little bits at a time. And you can see these threads here, how long it takes for that seat to move, even when you can move it consistently until it's done. It's slow. So it added a lot of extra time for that, but there's no other way. And the problem that I had right off the bat is that the seat, whoever sat here last, had it positioned where both of these seat rail brackets here that connect down to the chain drive were blocking both the back bolts and the front bolts. So I couldn't get a tool in to get not even one of the 4 bolts out. So being a Friday night, the dealer, most of the dealer service guys are not around on Saturday. So there we go. I had to, improvise. So I could get a battery back in the car and get it fired up. So it was a little bit of a learning experience, and took it very cautiously. And eventually I won the war and the car started running great. So, yeah, there's definitely an issue with the plate. The battery actually squeezed up past the plate when I did the little pry motion. So what I'm going to do instead is actually take the battery out so I can see what the issue is with the plate. Because obviously I'm going to want that to reseat properly. Remember exactly what I used last time to get that extra space. Actually, we'll just sit there. That gave us like 1.5 inches extra space. So what I'm gonna do is squeeze my arm up here and grab that 10mm nut on top of the positive terminal, but this one's a little bit different. You can see down in here there's two. The one going vertical, we leave that alone. We want the one going at that funky angle pointing towards us. And I recommend a fairly short 10mm wrench, so you have a little more room to bite onto the nut and actually be able to successfully give it somewhat of a little bit of rotation each time you're getting the position. And it only takes about a turn and a half, 2 turns maybe, as long as it was installed the accepted way of how tight you actually put these. They don't need to be earth-shattering tight. They just need to be a little past snug, because these are aluminum and pot metal, if I'm not mistaken. So the last thing you want to do is cause any damage to the top of the terminal where you can't get it to stay tight anymore on the battery terminal. Then you're looking at a huge job for replacing that cable. God knows how many harnesses that is running through or with. Because these cars have miles and miles of wires and data bus, fiber optic, network cables, you name it, it's pretty much got it. Some of the cars, BMW has some antenna cables that are very specific and specialty type, all the way up to, I've even seen in one model, I've seen some new revised BNC connectors. I was like, whoa, wait. So there's just a lot going on with these cars. So right now I've got the battery ready to come out. I am got myself positioned leaning over the camera right now, which is over the second row passenger area here. I'm using the driver's seat to support me with my left arm. I've got my right knee at a 90 on the door sill, little panel. So I've got good support up top, good support on my legs, and I'll be able to keep my back pretty straight. So what I'm going to do, these suckers are a bit heavy, but I'm going to work it out up and then come out at an angle like I said, it's got a little bit of weight to it. So what I'm going to do is change my positioning. Okay, now I switched knees, squeezed in a little more. Now it looks like I'll be able to use both of my arms, and hands, of course, to better assist with getting this out like that at the right angle, and without straining too much energy on my lower back, because I'll tell you guys now, I'm only 45 and I've already had to have a spinal fusion because I didn't take care of my back when I was younger doing a lot of heavy duty work. So just a life note, take care of your back, save the future pain. So let me take you off the tripod. And now that it's out like this, I'm just gonna squeeze it out here. And you know, I'm fairly strong. So I'll take it out at waist height almost. And set it on something equally high. This is just ergonomic talk here. You know, want people to not get sore and get hurt doing what we love. So this car, this is the specs you would be looking for if you had one of these cars specifically, is the H8 AGM. That designates the size of the battery physically. And then you got your cold cranking amps, and you got your cranking amps at freezing point. And then you have the reserve capacity and your amp hours. So this battery was about 290 bucks, or give or take, from AutoZone. And I got a good relationship with one of the guys there, so occasionally I get thrown in that extra 10-15% off. So helps the pocketbook, and doesn't hurt to bring them a lunch every 4 or 6 months to show your appreciation for them taking care of you as well. That kind of stuff goes a long way, in my opinion. You know, we all got to stick together. Oh, look at this bottle cap. Looks like we got to do a little housekeeping in here. There's the positive terminal cover, probably from a previous battery. What else we got going on down here? Oh, not too bad. So this is the battery tray, which is welded to that lower sheet metal framing for the floor of the vehicle. And in this car, I could actually, I forget if I have a cover. I think I have a brush guard cover. Yeah. If my brush guard covers weren't there, what you would see is the battery box is recessed below the floor of the cabin itself. You know, because you got to have your drivetrain running underneath of it. You got your exhaust, you got a bunch of stuff. So, you know, it needs that clearance under the cabin. But the battery is completely recessed under the height of the cabin floor. And there's the positive terminal that I was referring to. So turn off the switch here. So this one is some accessory planned option maybe for the car as it was getting built or designed. They had this designed on purpose, and then it was available if the car came equipped with A, B, or C, and in the production line that would have been added there, more than likely. Let me quickly switch my grip on the phone. So this, you know, bolt here it goes through the first part here of the first like outer limb here off of the terminal ring itself, and then there's a gap, and the gap allows for a little bit of play for variances in the terminal size. You know, some might be a hair bigger, some hair smaller, so you have a little bit of tolerance there that you can work with. And then the back on this one, I don't know if we can really get way over there for that. Okay, there it is. Sorry about the video. There's the back side. So I've seen these designed two ways. This one is better in my opinion, because the bolt is actually replaceable once you take the nut all the way off. I have seen these designed as a solid piece with the stud of the bolt securely, you know, heated in there, or maybe some kind of mini press or tack weld or something, and then it's completely covered, sealed, so there's no replacement of the stud should it get broken or stripped out. So I think that design is gone now, but I have seen it. So, you know, the metal on these terminals is pretty soft, so these can get damaged by abuse if you know, someone's being too rough with these, with tools or hammers or anything out of the ordinary. And this is your stainless steel nut here, and like I said, we only turned it about 2 turns, and it separated this just enough to relieve the pressure on the positive terminal. And then, yeah, we just slipped it off and left it. So, you know, we ended up having to go as far as taking the battery out. So that's our last quick topic here, is to see what's going on with this plate. So as you can see, the left side here in the picture, or in the video, is what's going on? Already recessed back. See this gap in here? And you see I've got the foam pretty straight, so you can see how the bracket is actually crooked right now. It's sitting here crooked. And this one is just the opposite way. The gap in the cutout for the tolerance or play that you need to maneuver this bracket to put the right amount of I'll just say sandwich type of pressure here with the front of this plate. It's designed at an angle on purpose. And I'll go back to the battery for just a second. So the positive side even has it. It's pretty much usually around the whole battery. In this case, it definitely is. So it's got a little extension on the base of the battery going all the way around. And this is the negative terminal side, so this is the side we could see right away when we first started. And so what we need is this lower section here, lower part of the base of the battery. We need that to have, well, let me say it this way. We need to make sure the front of the battery, its protrusion here, is tucked up all the way in where it needs to go in the front of the battery box. So up as far as it can go, nice, snug, and tight. And then that bracket, you saw how it's misaligned right now, and the bolts are, or the nuts are free and gone, but it's tweaked. So we're gonna have to probably give it a tap with a small hammer to get it to break free and pop it out. But then when we put it back in, we're gonna line it up, put it all the way against the wall of the battery housing here, right down in here. And then what I do is I get the nuts all the way down hand tight, and then I use one of my big pry bars and come in at a little bit of an angle to get the end of my pry bar just on the back side of that bracket. So I'll show you what I mean. We'll just use a short extension right here for demonstration purposes. We want to get, oh, there's the bracket's moving now. So we want the bracket, you can see the studs here, that gap's now in the front, that gap's also now in the front. So the design here is that this bracket, depending on the battery size, you know, not every battery manufacturer has probably the same exact dimensions of their battery housing or their battery base. So that's why there's a little bit of adjustment allowed here to make that sandwich. And this will give you an idea of what I mean. You see right in there, it has an arcing up, maybe 10-15 degrees ish from the flat part, which is like where this part number is, and then the same thing over here. So what our goal is to put the battery back in, set this down in on the studs, just snug it up against next to the battery, hand tighten the nuts, and then use a bigger pry bar, such as this 30-inch 3/8 drive breaker bar, and work your way dealing with the seat, because you got clearance. Maybe find a 6-inch shorter, 8-inch shorter. We might still be able to do what we need. That would be better. And we would get the end of that into the available space right behind that bracket, right kind of where that sealant is, the white sealant, not the yellow. That's the yellow glue in manufacturing. We would want to be a little bit behind that and force that pressure onto the bracket, just to give you that little extra security that that battery is going to be down there super tight and solid. Even though it's a non-spillable battery, you can't really damage it, even if it was loose. The only thing I see being an issue is that if it is loose, that could drive you crazy on bumpy roads, stuff like that. So I'll take this to where we get the battery back in real quick, the bracket down in there, get the nuts on, and get breaker bar or something of that effect, a pry bar, to sneak it in there and put just a little extra pressure on that bracket, forcing it towards the battery housing at the base, and tighten the nuts at the same time. Then we know our battery is going to be in there solid with no play, nothing. It'll just be solid like a rock. So that's our goal. There it comes, and coming with the battery. Set it down partially for a moment. Here on the floor. This is a little bit of a tougher working space, especially when you grab a couple extra tools that you didn't think you would normally need, because you need to kind of work through a little bit of a situation, like how we were dealing with this plate not budging at all, and then all of a sudden it started to move. So when it comes to putting the battery back in, I'm not worried about trying to be super gentle. There's nothing to break as long as you stay away from all those wire connections to the right. So I'm going to do some of the work controlling the descent, but I'm going to let gravity help us out. Again, ergonomic. Save on your back. You can always fix a little bit of something if something happens, break a tool, big deal. Just less, there we go. Just less wear and tear on your body. So, okay, I got it lined up with the front of the battery tray. Okay, now we just need to pull this piece of carpet out of our way, because it kind of folded in there, no problem. There we go. Now it's flapping back up, just like that. And now we're gonna confirm that we are lined in the tray. Oh, we're off by 1/4 inch. There we go. Okay, so now we're down in the tray, square on both sides. Suggestion, because it's about 3 inches closer to you, is to reinstall the positive terminal before we shift the battery forward. Plus, you got to get your hand down here and pull it out, because it usually falls out of view. There we go. All right, so that is almost flush. There we go. So I like to try to get them as close to flush as possible, the top of the terminal with the terminal ring connector, because usually those measurements for both parts are fairly close in overall heights, or depths and heights. So that way I know 99% of that terminal is making contact. Because the other thing you don't want is a loose battery cable or connector here at the terminal, and you're trying to pull all these awesome cranking amps these batteries have, and the starter on your big V8 wants as much battery juice as it can get sometimes. Of course, depending on the weather, because that can play a big role too, especially in colder climates. You'll get a little bit of arcing. The battery will definitely not last as long as it's designed to when taken care of. And you cause damage to, like I said, to the ring terminal assembly here itself. These cables are, super heavy duty cables. This looks like at least a 2 gauge. Yeah, they're not labeled like standard electronics labeling for wiring. It's got a part number, that's it. But this one obviously wouldn't be so bad. It's got one little connector. This is to monitor battery drain issues. It's actually got a chip in there with a hardware version. And then right in here, since this is the one that may tend to get more of the abuse, because the positive one is safely secure, that connector terminates right there, which is on a big fat connector welded to the frame. So that's how you're getting your ground throughout the entire car. So the positive terminal is on there. I gave it 2 okay turns. What I'm going to do now is use the closed end of my wrench, get it lined up, and give it just a snug. And it's not a lot of range in here, so it makes it hard to tell when you actually achieve the snug point you feel comfortable with. So since the box end is not cooperating as much, let's try a different angle with the open end and see. There we go. Oh, so we're almost there. So sometimes you just got to get it started at one angle, and as you start to get it to rotate, because the space is so limited right here, just work the wrench around as the nut is actually starting to move. And try to get it to a point where you feel, 1 or 2 fingers is pretty hard to turn it. That's when, in my opinion, in my experience, you got a snug connection. Not over tightened that you can't get it off later, and then you're back in trouble dealing with how to replace the positive cables, which there's 2 of them, and those are probably 0 gauge, and if I remember correctly, those run through the firewall. There we go, got it, out to the 400 amp fuse in the engine bay that supplies your positive juice to the starter motor. So that's a really heavy duty cable, and you can see how just working on something like this, a battery, dealing with some internal components here, the seat, panels and stuff, can be testy sometimes. I have a video I posted a little while ago about the front bumper cover having about 8 individual structural items that reinforce the painted part of the bumper cover, and I did a full disassembly and reassembly on that, and it took quite a few hours because the molded the way the molded clips are built into all of the support structure pieces, obviously, for crash safety and all the other good stuff, they're very difficult to manhandle out one at a time. So there are some very difficult things when it comes to working on these Mercedes. Same goes for BMW. My wife has an M series, and I've done some rework on that with rebuilding suspension, front and rear, stuff like that. A lot of work, a lot of time, but saves you. In that case, it was almost $22,000 I would have had to pay to have someone else do it. So I did it all for about $2,700. I got all the parts from Forder, who's the original OEM manufacturer for BMW suspension parts. They just don't have the molded stamp with the actual BMW part number. So same material, same construction, same design, It just doesn't have the molded stamp. No problem for me. Okay, so here's the bracket. Here's these two little angles I was talking about earlier. So this bracket goes in where these are going towards the battery, because that's how you're gonna have the bracket have some play here. As it's tightening down, it's trying to, the bracket's trying to be squeezed straight down, but with these angles and the angle of the base of the battery sticking out or protruding towards the bracket, now you've got two contact points that are designed to rub against each other, and as the bolts tighten down, force more pressure on the battery staying forward and basically wedging the front end super tight, and this is going to squeeze the back end down and stay down super tight. So don't mean to get into too much engineering speak, but that's my day job. So drop it too fast. Let's see, what are they? Sorry guys, I think I dropped the bracket too fast and it got way misaligned before I could even get it in place. Gotta love these tight working tolerances, spaces that foreign car manufacturers like BMW, Mercedes give you to do any kind of repairs. Okay, actually, I have a correction. Yeah, I did have it backwards. So let me show you real quick. I was thinking of it like an engineer and not actually checking both ways to make sure I was correct in what I was saying. I have no problem taking fault for making a false statement. That's what I remember now. That there was a space here where you could use something like a pry bar or an open breaker bar or something. That's how you're going to get your tension to push this the rest of the way. And if you look a little bit at the bracket, looking at it from this angle, the long back bar, that's actually better anyways, engineering speak, because you've got more surface area making contact with the battery housing. So that actually should put quite a bit of good pressure on that battery. So I'll quickly drop the nuts down there. And learning skills like managing a nut really far away with 3 or even down to 2 fingers is a good skill to pick up. Or the other way to do it in this case would be a cool little cheating way, I guess, or shortcut. You can actually take a piece of an electrical tape and put it over the top of the nut, and then shove it into the socket, and it'll kind of stick there. Not permanently, but it'll be just enough to hold it there when you're going in a downward motion with a bolt or a nut that you need to put somewhere to tighten. Just a little trick, and I'm actually going to use that because my hands are a little bit too big for the cramped tight space down where that bracket meets the battery. So I'm gonna get my 13 on my extension. We're gonna grab a small roll of E-tape. There's a couple ways you could do it. You could wrap it around the outside of that bolt. You could just put a chunk over the top. I mean, really, whatever you fancy. You're just making a real thin extra layer here, which will create just that slight pressure in the socket. So the nut, it won't go all the way in, and you don't want to force it all the way in. There's no need to. But now, that's not going to fall out as I go to take this all the way down to the welded studs in the frame. So now I have a little more control on getting these down there. So there, I already got one, starting to thread it. Okay, that's just about like less than hand tight, but with a slight bit of pressure. And tape may or may not come back with you. No sweat. Just a small piece of electrical tape. There's probably a good couple, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 rolls of the, what? How many feet are on these things? 100, something like that. In all these cars anyways, with their factory harnesses. So a little extra piece of tape just hanging around won't be a big deal. So I'll just show this again to make sure I didn't miss it earlier. So that's the way I usually do it, because I get every contact point on the nut, just to ensure, especially if you're working in places like under the engine, or working on the engine from above. You know, you don't want to keep dropping nuts or bolts or whatnot that you're trying to get down into some obscure place with some contraption of swivels and extensions, and then lose your bolt and have to go fish it out or crawl under, find it, and do it again. So little tricks of the trade can save some headaches and definitely a lot of time. With you know, preventing those types of situations where you got to keep trying and trying and trying. So let me take you off the tripod real quick. So now I've got them both there. You can obviously, it's got black tape on top of both the nuts. Again, no sweat there. I do have a long pair of needle nose, so I can actually reach down there. I'll probably pop both those pieces off. That way I'm just making a solid connection with my socket to the nut. It'll help with the feeling of the amount of torque I'm applying. And then now I'm going to get something down in that one crevice on the bracket side, the back side, to create the tension or pressure against the battery that we were talking about earlier. So there's no play in this battery at all when I make the final tightening of the two bolts, or sorry, the two nuts. So, just trying to see if this is what I used last time or not. Oh, there we go. Yep, that's perfect. It already shifted about a ½ inch by putting that pressure. So, you know, obviously the seat is no fun that it still hangs here, even though you have a fair amount of space to work, but it still can give you a little trouble when you're trying to do this process. So what I'm going to do is keep it in the middle. And, you know, this is a big old breaker bar. So I'm going to give it some, oh, before I do that, as we discussed a minute ago, I use my long needle nose and just sneak on down, pop off the 2 pieces of electrical tape. And there they are. So, don't need those now. So now we're good there. The nuts are awaiting the arrival of our 13 millimeter. And I'm ready to apply a fair amount of pulling force, creating that pressure there down there, sandwiching the battery housing on the bottom. So give it a good upper body. As you can see, this can be a little daunting to do both of these at the same time. Okay, there's one. Definitely past hand tight at least. This is a cool wrench, by the way, totally fully adjustable. So it makes it a little easier to manhandle with one hand. And for obscure places with less clearance, like this. Okay. So I held as much force there as I could while I got those bolts down as much as I could, you know, with my upper body strength and each arm and so on. So now, yeah, this looks good. I'll show you in a minute. I'm going to add the last bit of tightening to these 2 nuts. And just as a side note, the reason why I'm real particular about tightening everything a little extra in my vehicle is 90% of this vehicle's life after I paid it off was to turn it into a mountain rat, per se. So this thing has been to many mountain trails, managed, unmanaged, skinny trails. This car had a hideous amount of pinstriping on it that took 6 days and a ton of products, 3-step process products from 3D, available on Amazon. And I used their 3-step process, went through quite a few bottles. This is a big vehicle. And I had pinstriping everywhere except the hood and the roof. So, branches on trails, don't like big cars. But this thing's been through water crossings, mud pits, stuck up on berms, had to get pulled off by tractors, you name it. I've pretty much taken this thing there. So I try to go just a little extra on just about everything I do when I am working on this vehicle. That way I know and feel super confident that I am going to be mechanically solid when I go on those kind of trips. Just can't be too sure, because a rescue could take 2 or 3 days, depending how far in you are. Okay, I'm gonna put the ground back on. And this ground cable, there's nowhere else for it to go. It's always sat kind of weird, and it's not like a cable that you can just, you know, heat up and like reform or whatever. It's too short, it's too crammed, and it kind of falls back into this position like that's how it was. You know how wire harnesses don't take very long to mold to their shape that they're put in when they're first made. And, you know, that always helps mechanics be able to put like an entire engine harness back, and all the connectors just naturally fall fairly close to where they're actually supposed to be connected. So it has its pros and cons, but this one, remember that cover is going to be here, that plastic cover here, then you got the blower, then you got another plastic cover, and it's just a ground. So nothing to sweat over. So I'm gonna get my ground. It's a lot easier to access. So again, not too crazy. You know, that if I had to guess is maybe 7 or 8 foot-pounds by hand. That thing's not going nowhere. So the rest of the process would be similar, practically identical, obviously, to what we did to get to this point earlier in the video. And I wanted to get a quick view down here for you to show you how successful the bracket mounting went with putting that pressure on the battery. So as you can see in the front, the left side here, we've got some openness here through the bracket, because as you notice, the bracket had an elongated oval cutout, so that you had that flexibility for the bracket based on battery size. And then this one even came out just a hair better. There actually was just a hair bit more clearance there, or more space. So that means we know the battery is perfectly square to the end of the battery tray on the positive side. And this is where the correction fills itself in with the sandwiching of the bracket there on the negative terminal side. So, not to make this video too long and chat about lots of car stuff, but just like to share anything that I know, experiences that I've had, especially working on cars of this nature, Mercedes, BMW, Porsches. I've done a lot of similar work for some high-end dealerships in my past, and learned my way around these higher-end cars, do's and don'ts, and how to protect your own, you know what, when you're working on a car that's 2-3 times your yearly salary, and you'll probably lose your job. So you just gain that experience and that confidence over time with these higher end cars. But I think that'll about do it. Just remember, the special tool you'll need for this project that you may not have in your toolbox would be the reverse Torx. Again, you can get it from Harbor Freight. There's no need to go run out and buy a snap-on set for something you're going to do with one of the sockets every 5 to 7 years. I have not seen any other cars besides the Mercedes use those reverse Torx in a long time. They are also used on the they were used commonly on the classic silver S500s, the S550s back in the 2000s. They were used a lot of those reverse Torx bolts on the engine and its accessories, i.e. power steering pump, hydraulic pump. Those cars had hydraulic suspension back then. Leaked all the time. You'd have to replace the pump, and you need a lot of special sockets and tools, and some of them even from Mercedes, to even do the work physically before you even get to reprogramming and calibration and all that. So, bite off what you think you can handle. Reach out to the forums for research tips and advice. And, all else fails, bite the bullet and have your service writer take care of you, So, but I have faith in this brand. Always have had it for what are we going on now? 15 years I switched to this brand, and it's all I drive. So that's it, guys and gals, if you're listening. That is the extended detail version of how to get in here and really work with this heavy battery mounted in a very obscure place. But hopefully this video helps. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.